Good evening, I'm Dennis Ward. Welcome to APTN National News. Another First Nations person has died in an interaction with law enforcement in Canada. APTN News has confirmed this is at least the 15th Indigenous person to have died during or shortly after an interaction with police since late August. APTN's Baeleigh brings us this report.
According to RCMP, on Saturday, December 14th at around 8 p.m., Cold Lake RCMP responded to a 911 call of an attempted stabbing at a transit stop on 50th Street and 43rd Avenue in Cold Lake. Two officers found a male armed with an edged weapon. RCMP say the officers used what they are calling intervention options, including using a firearm against the man. The man was then taken to hospital and died from his injuries. The Alberta Serious Incident Response Team is now investigating. Farron Atkinson, the brother of the man who died, says he is 40-year-old Matthew Atkinson, also known in the community as Fabian Scanny, from the Cold Lake First Nation in Alberta. He was shot by police just 1 week after he was released from prison and chose to be in Cold Lake to be closer to his two children. Farron said he and his brother are 60 Scoop survivors, and his brother had his own challenges from that life-altering incident, including mental health and addiction issues. Farron also said the family alleges the RCMP shot his brother in the back when he was walking away from police, and that it was Bonnyville RCMP involved. Farron said the Cold Lake RCMP know Matthew Atkinson well, and they wouldn't have shot him. He questions why such lethal force was used.
It was uncalled for. There are other means to subdue a person. Like they could have used a baton, or they could have used a taser. They could have took him down. They didn't need to kill him. This is Bonnyville detachment that we're dealing with it. If it was Cold Lake, because Cold Lake RCMP, they know Fabian very well with previous dealings with him. Like if it was Cold Lake that was dealing with it, the outcome would have been so much different. I want answers. I want to know exactly what's went on. I want video. I want justice for him.
Baeleigh, APTN National News, Winnipeg.
APTN News has also identified a man from White Bear First Nation in Saskatchewan who died while in custody at the Carlisle RCMP detachment. Community members have identified the man as 49-year-old Rene Jumbo Fiddler. He's being remembered as a loving family man and a gentle giant. According to the RCMP, Fiddler was arrested last Friday in connection with a number of assaults in White Bear. He was taken to the Carlisle detachment and monitored by staff throughout the night. At around 9 a.m., Fiddler was found in medical distress. First aid was provided until EMS arrived. He was declared deceased by EMS. The Serious Incident Response Team is still investigating. On September 9th, 2021, 9-year-old Baeleigh Maurice was killed in a car accident on her way to school. The driver was accused of being impaired. That charge was stayed. In a press conference today, the Federation of Sovereign Indigenous Nations and friends of Baleigh's family demanded justice. APTN's Rachel May was there.
Taylor Kennedy admitted to vaping marijuana and microdosing magic mushrooms the day before she hit Baeleigh and killed her in a crosswalk on her way to school. Kennedy was charged with impaired driving, causing death for having marijuana in her bloodstream. Under Canadian law, criminal trials must end within 18 months. Kennedy's took almost 2 years. Last week, Judge Jane Watton ruled Kennedy was not tried within a reasonable time and stayed the charges, meaning they could come up again if she reoffends. Sarah Smokey Day, a family friend, spoke on behalf of Baleigh's mother, Rochelle Dubois.
She's lost her voice, quite literally has lost her voice. From talking, crying, yelling, wanting to be heard. She asked for me to speak for her today because she's lost her voice.
Smokey Day said Kennedy's case should have gone to trial much sooner.
It took too long from the minute Baeleigh was killed. It took too long for the police to press charges. It took too long for things to get to court. It took too long to settle on a lawyer. It took too long to get through the court case. And the judge was perfectly fine with washing her hands of any decisions.
Craig McCollum, 4th Vice Chief of the Federation of Sovereign Indigenous Nations, says Judge Watton's decision should be appealed. He also said that the chiefs have a proposal of its own, Baleigh's Law.
There's 6 provisions within it. Number 1 is the prioritization of child victims. In cases where a child under 16 years of age has died as a result of the accused actions, the court must ensure that the interests of the child and their family are given enhanced consideration in both procedural timelines and outcomes.
Other provisions include protection against delays, prohibiting charges stayed in child death cases, tougher sentencing for impaired child fatalities, child victim advocacy, and a reevaluation of impaired driving laws. Since the trial began, Baleigh's family has been attacked mercilessly on social media. McCollum urged the people behind the attacks to reflect on themselves before posting hateful comments.
I've seen the comments. It hurts. It's disheartening to know that there are people that have beliefs like that out there. And I would just ask them, what if it was your kid? Would you be saying the same thing?
The family is asking the public to pressure the Crown and Saskatchewan's Minister of Justice to appeal Judge Watton's decision. Rachel May, APTN National News, Saskatoon.
To Ottawa now, where today is the last day on the parliamentary calendar for this year. And the Conservatives didn't give Dominic LeBlanc a warm welcome as the new finance minister. They used question period today to bash the Liberals' economic statement and to once again call for an election.
A $62 billion deficit smashing through the already insane $40 billion guardrail. Canada is a serious G7 NATO partner staring down the threat of 25% tariffs. We deserve a strong leader with a new mandate. Why not let Canadians decide by calling a carbon tax election?
Our government is very proud of the fall economic statement that we made public yesterday. Mr. Speaker, the fall economic statement speaks to growth in the Canadian economy. It speaks to supporting Canadians with serious affordability challenges. It speaks to a declining debt to GDP ratio.
For more on the fallout from the resignation of Chrystia Freeland from Cabinet and what happens next with the Trudeau government, we're joined by our Truth and Politics panelist, Jennifer Leywitz from Saskatoon. Jennifer, thanks for being with us. Quite the bombshell yesterday morning. What were your thoughts on the Deputy Prime Minister and Finance Minister resigning on a day she was supposed to be presenting the fall economic statement?
I was surprised. I think I wasn't surprised to hear that there was going to be a cabinet shuffle coming ahead. I think it was inevitable at this point, especially, before the Christmas break and then heading into a new session in the new year. I was, however, surprised that she did it the way she did it, especially on such a big day. But typically when you do something like that, it's for maximum impact. So I think this told a very clear story that Chrystia Freeland was not having it. And I think when the news came out yesterday that she had been talked to from the Prime Minister through Zoom last week, I think that showed us that, he didn't respect her time or even her commitment to cabinet. And I think that this was basically her public statement of this was unacceptable. I'm not going to tolerate it. Here's your fall economic statement. Best of luck to you as you attempt to present this to the public.
All right. Leslie's speaking at the moment. I've not heard the Prime Minister speak yet. Do you think that he should speak to Canadians or the media?
Of course he should. I think when you release, an economic update to Canadians that isn't painting a good picture, we're hearing about a $61.9 billion deficit. Granted, it's $21.9 billion over the guardrail that they had told us about in the spring budget. I think, if anything, the least you can do when that happens is acknowledge the public. But also, Canadians now are looking at a government that is completely fractured and falling apart. And right now, more than ever, like Jody Wilson-Raybould had inserted an opinion on this, basically saying we're on the eve of a tariff war. We have, a cost of living crisis happening. We have major issues ahead of the country right now when it comes to reconciliation, like child welfare and, some other issues that we're seeing, especially with the AFN. Now is not the time to see a government that is fractured the way that it is, especially, we're seeing the U.S. Elect a new president. What's happening? What's going on? And right now we have a prime minister that can't acknowledge anything. He didn't show up to question period. He didn't release a statement, but he did a $1,000 to $1,700 a plate fundraiser last night. So really, if anything, that just tells Canadians that he doesn't care. He's lost touch and he's halfway out the door.
Right. Well, they're all halfway or more out the door. MPs are about to go on their Christmas break, which is always a lengthy break. An election now seems unlikely until probably spring. What do you think this means for Canadians, for government over the next few months?
I think Canadians are unfortunately used to it at this point. I think they're used to just seeing very little happening out of Ottawa that is producing real results. These breaks are meant to be constituency breaks where MPs go back to their constituencies and spend time with their constituents at events, in their constituency offices, whatever it might be. And typically for more high profile ministers and stuff like that, they'll be out on the trail. They'll be doing things to advance their government, their party. But right now we can see that there's fractures in the party. So I have a feeling we're going to be seeing a lot of Liberal MPs laying low this Christmas.
Right. Well, Jennifer, you won't be laying low. We'll see you back here in a couple of days for the panel. Appreciate you taking some time for us here today.
No problem.
Time for a quick break. Still to come, look at an Indigenous-led company training communities how to react in a crisis situation. Welcome back. A Northern Ontario agency that seeks to provide Indigenous-led community support is expanding. ISN Musqueam, which is based in Sault Ste. Marie, assists Indigenous communities in leading their own response to emergency situations, including floods and forest fires. APTN's Mike McDonald reports.
This is ISN Musqueam's Indigenous Emergency Operations Centre, which is a first in Canada. It is owned by the Missinaibi Cree First Nation, and one of its main objectives is training community support personnel to assist with emergency response efforts in First Nation communities.
Probably the biggest responsibility bestowed upon us as a chief of a community saying, take care of my people. They give us that entire responsibility to look after their folks while they're off doing what they need to do to keep their communities safe.
ISN Musqueam was launched in 2020. Its first hire was Ernie Ludit, an armed forces and law enforcement veteran who now heads the agency's emergency planning division.
When First Nations were getting evacuated, there's been a long history, especially in Ontario, of incidents and mistreatment and sometimes outright racism against people that are evacuated into larger urban settings in Northern Ontario. So our whole goal was to make evacuations seem more like an unexpected gathering.
On the ground are community support personnel who are trained to deal with a variety of challenges, not just evacuation support.
We assist with a lot of first response calls, whether it be to domestic abuse, drug, alcohol calls, mental health calls. We also do a lot of youth programming within the communities that we're in, as well as helping out elders and that sort of stuff.
And that trust and that communication, that First Nations supporting First Nations is that core value that we live by. And communities and partnerships and again, those relationships are built on that mutual respect.
ISN Musqueam has expanded from its base in Northern Ontario and is servicing parts of northern Manitoba. The Missinaibi Cree First Nation is also working with ISN Musqueam to develop an incident host site on its lands, though that is still early in the planning stages. Mike McDonald, APTN National News, Sault Ste. Marie.
Thanks, Mike. Canada's largest mining company made history in Kirkland Lake. Agnico Eagle signed an agreement with the Beaver House First Nation. They say confirms a shared commitment to sustainable development, community collaboration, and reconciliation. CTV's Lydia Chubak reports.
I figured maybe we'd swap bins there after.
This is the first time Beaver House First Nation in Kirkland Lake has signed an agreement with a mining company. The agreement is a milestone as it will provide opportunities for Beaver House First Nation for generations to come.
Our values are very constructive and based on respect and listening and learning. We've been operating Macassa Mine now close to a century, and we're looking forward to continue with this relationship for years to come.
The agreement that has been signed is going to be fruitful for the membership long term, and that's what's important, right? Generational planning and moving forward to ensure that our young people have a future, because we are not going to be the ones to leave our territory, right?
The Macassa mine remains one of the highest gold grade mines in the world, and Chief Wabi says it offers a wide range of opportunities.
You don't have to just be, right into the bowels of hard rock mining. You can be in management positions, and those are the things that I think are going to help get our keep our influence within the project itself.
Officials say negotiating this agreement was a positive experience. They say it only took 6 months when it typically takes 2 or more years.
We really appreciate all the work that was done by Chief Wabi and the councilors and the elders, and we've been very collaborative relationship, which is great.
The two groups will now turn to negotiating a second agreement on Agnico Eagle's Upper Beaver project. Lydia Chubak, CTV News, Kirkland Lake.
Ontario's Court of Appeal has ruled in a case where Saugeen First Nation was awarded ownership of a large stretch of Sauble Beach shoreline. That section of beach will now be under the control of the Saugeen.
The Saugeen First Nation are the rightful owners to 2 kilometers of valuable Sauble Beach shoreline. The rights of the Saugeen people have been vindicated after generations of struggle. This is a victory that belongs to our entire community. Our relationship with our lands and waters is central to our way of life, and Sauble Beach is an integral part of our community, says Saugeen First Nation Chief Conrad Ritchie. Ontario's Court of Appeal dismissed an appeal by the town of South Bruce Peninsula, the province of Ontario, and 2 private Sauble Beach landowners as to whether the Saugeen First Nation really do own the stretch of sandy beach from Main Street to 6th Street North in the shoreline town. An April 2023 court ruling transferred ownership of the stretch of sand from the town of South Bruce Peninsula to the Saugeen First Nation after decades of legal wrangling. South Bruce Peninsula and Ontario disagreed, but their appeal was dismissed on December the 9th, clearing the path for unfettered control of a large swath of Sauble Beach's shoreline to the local Indigenous band. The court has recognized the importance of Sauble Beach to the Saugeen First Nation, but we recognize it is important to others as well, including as a tourist destination. We look forward to continuing to doing the good work that we have done with our neighbors and partners over the past 2 summers to keep the beach a special place for everyone under the Saugeen First Nation's jurisdiction. Public access to one of Ontario's top beach destinations has continued since the ownership change and appears to be continuing that way into the future. The town of South Bruce Peninsula, who still oversee the rest of Sauble Beach, say they are considering next steps. While we are disappointed with the outcome, we respect the judicial process and remain committed to acting in the best interests of our community, says South Bruce Peninsula Mayor Jay Kirkland. Having their appeal dismissed means the town of South Bruce Peninsula will have to cover nearly $2 million in court costs for both the Saugeen First Nation and the Government of Canada, who were supporting the Indigenous group's land claim. In Midwestern Ontario, Scott Miller, CTV News.
Coming up after the break, a preview of tonight's all-new episode of Face to Face with our guest, Shawnee Kish. Stick around. Welcome back. Time now for our photo of the day. Christmas without the Colonel? Not a chance for Alan McKay, where the good Colonel is always present during the holidays. And he has once again taken his spot atop the Christmas tree in the McKay home. For the chance to be our next photo of the day, send your pictures to share@aptn.ca. Now let's take a look at tomorrow's weather forecast. Starting on the East Coast, 6 above in Halifax, +5 in Fredericton. -15 with snow in Kuujjuaq, Flurries and 10 below in Nain. -1 in snow in Montreal. -4 in Val-d'Or. 0 with snow in Sault Ste. Marie. -1 in flurries in North Bay. 8 below with snow in Thunder Bay. Cloudy and 16 below in Sioux Lookout. -17 in Thompson, God's Lake, and Norway House. Sunny and -21 in Winnipeg. -19 under sunny skies in Dauphin. 16 below with snow in Regina. -20 and flurries in Saskatoon. -24 in Buffalo Narrows and La Ronge. In northern Alberta, -22 in High Level and Fort McMurray. -14 with snow in Edmonton, flurries and 4 below in Lethbridge. +8 in Vancouver, 9 with showers in Victoria. -9 with flurries in Prince George, snow and 5 below in Smithers. -34 in Old Crow, 22 below in Whitehorse. -28 in Yellowknife, 35 below in Norman Wells. -19 in Sax Harbor, -34 for Fort McPherson. -28 in Chesterfield, 26 below in Whale Cove. -28 in Resolute and Arctic Bay. Mohawk singer-songwriter Shawnee Kish is putting a bow on her transformative year with the unwrapping of a new single in time for the holidays. Favorite Gift is a Christmas song about her baby daughter. It's the 5th single Kish has released this year. She was also nominated for 2 Juno Awards. But on Face to Face tonight, she says the music industry hasn't always been a welcome place for her.
No, not always. To be really quite honest, I could say yes and say, but no. Yes, in some ways, but no in others. I think especially when I came out, you know, first like kind of into the scene and I released some music, I was encouraged to not be out as a two-spirit person. And that was what I was told would help all genders feel included, which is specifically we're going to talk about men, to feel included in my journey, which nobody's excluded in my journey. But
it was a great convo. You can catch our entire interview with Shawnee in less than 2 minutes' time right here. We're all out of time for your APTN National News for this Tuesday. For much more or news anytime, you can visit our website, aptnnews.ca. Enjoy Creason back here tomorrow at 1 p.m. Eastern Time for your first look at the day's news. I'm Dennis Ward, Marcy Miigwech. Thanks for being with us. Stick around. Face to Face is next. Have a good night.